What is up, my fellow sports fans? I'm so excited. I'm like hitting the table. It's just falling everywhere. Oh my God, Christian McCaffrey. It is. It's pretty exciting though. I'm like definitely super excited. My girlfriend and I were just talking about moving from the Bay up to Pacific Northwest. Just found out we got an apartment today. And, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a part of this. Like going to a Niners game is fun now. She's not the biggest sports fan. So if you take her to go through the Niners, they've got Debo, Christian McCaffrey, Ayuk, Kittle. Like whoever touches the ball, it's going to be fun. Even Juice, like that's fun. Someone on Get Up was saying, they're one of the most um, skill player groups of all time. And in the NFL right now, blew the punchline. And I think they're one of the most skilled units of all time. Like I would say they're easily a top 10 unit of all time. Marshall Faulk has 50 games of 50 receiving yards and 50 rushing yards. Christian McCaffrey is second most with 24. So Faulk is way ahead of him, but McCaffrey's already like past everyone else. He's ahead of LaDainian Tomlinson. Anyone else you thought was a great receiver and running threat, Faulk is well above them. And when McCaffrey's done, he'll be well above them. So he is a huge playmaker. And then George Kittle is, in my opinion, top 3 tight end of all time. Tremendous blocker, tremendous after the catch. Biggest knock on him is he blocks too much, doesn't catch it enough, and he's hurt all the time. He's hurt all the time because of how tenacious he plays. So it kind of goes hand in hand. It's like maybe if you're choosing one for your team the whole year, you don't choose George Kittle. But if you need one game, a fierce tight end, it's like hard to say is anyone you choose besides George Kittle or Gronk. Those two dudes just maul. Like they're bigger, stronger, and faster than whoever's lined up against them. It's just they're a great guy to have. So you got CMC and Gronk, 2 matchup nightmares. Debo Samuel just had a ridiculous year last year. Brandon Ayuk is now the 4th option. That's terrifying. And then Kyle Juszczyk as number 5 is a great blocker, Swiss Army knife. He was in the NFL's top 100 players the past 2 years. So that's 5 dudes who can easily rank in the NFL top 100. Kittle, CMC, and Debo are easily like top 30 players in the NFL. And then Kittle and Ayuk around, or Juice and Ayuk around the 100 rank. And then Trent Williams is like a top 20 ranked player at left tackle. So he's not part of the skill player, but talking about how impressive that unit is, it's crazy. I meant to look it up before because I said I'd be good at stuff, but I totally forgot about the Yankees and started thinking about the Yankees and forgot to look up the Niners depth chart. So I was pretty familiar with it, but Aaron Banks at left guard. Now that was someone when they picked him, it's like a 2nd, 3rd round pick. I was really into that dude, 6'5", like 330 pounds. Let's see how he ranks on PFF. They got him at 325. He's 25 years old. He went to Notre Dame. That's right. 60 on PFF. So not great. He's also been playing without Trent Williams. So life is going to be a lot harder without Trent Williams. When did Trent Williams go down again? I'm just ranting here. I love it. I'm not going to Google when Trent Williams got hurt in front of you guys. But because one thing I was thinking is for fantasy purposes, is what everyone really cares about. Sorry, I don't talk about fantasy sports more often. Stupid articles is how Travis Kelce surpassed George Kittle as Niners best tight end. Didn't happen. That super didn't happen. Watch tape, guys. Watch tape. Kelce had a good point about it's about the offense you're in. Kelce's offense just allows him a lot more looks. So Kittle didn't play the first 2 weeks of the year, and then in week 3 he got 5 targets, and then 4 targets, and then 6 targets, and then last week 10 targets, and it was up to 83 yards. So he was hurt. Jimmy also was getting his feet wet, and then Trent Williams has not been playing. So now that Jimmy's got his feet more wet, CMC is going to require some extra attention. This really could help for Kittle. I was thinking it wouldn't help that much for Kittle because they're saying, oh, Kittle has to block a lot. If you want to pass and run with CMC, you actually do need blocking for that. So you don't need as much for a quick hit to a running back or tight end as you do for a receiver. But Debo's ADOT is also like one of the lowest in the leagues. So average depth of target. There's a lot of quick hits to Debo. So Kittle doesn't need to block that much for hitting Debo, and they've been passing to Debo a lot. So you can argue that it shouldn't have changed it that much. But anyways, I'm totally just ranting. Their offense is super fun now. Stephen A was saying the thing about the Niners, problem with Niners is that Jimmy Garoppolo has the ball. Everyone else is athletic. Got to get the ball out of his hands. Well, those are people who can get open quickly. Ayuk and Debo are both lightning fast. Kittle's fast for a tight end. And, of course, CMC's fast. So those guys can all get open in an instant. They're pretty precise route runners, too. Debo is not like doing nice middle of the field work like Keenan Allen or Devontae Adams, but he can do a quick stutter step and then get open. Like he can do that. Ayuk can too. What they could use as well is like a field stretcher. So that's actually my clickbaity title. I think the Niners could have traded for Robbie Anderson or Laviska Shenault. Both. I think there's a lot of things they could have done. So what they did is they traded a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth for Christian McCaffrey, who has a 4-year, $64 million deal. So the Niners are in the luxury of not having to pay a quarterback a ton of money, but after this year, Jimmy Garoppolo's contract is up. So they will have to pay a quarterback after this year or use Trey Lance, and Trey Lance looked worse than Justin Fields in week 1. Granted, that was a literal toilet bowl. They were playing in a mud storm, but it's Justin Fields we're talking about. Dude, like everyone's like, guy's not that good. And he looked a lot better than Trey Lance. So I know Lance got hurt early, but it's not like people were super excited about it already. So, and they already traded 3 firsts for Trey Lance. So they're giving up a second, third, fourth, and fifth for Christian McCaffrey, who's an injury-prone player. So they've sacrificed all these picks, and they're not like a super win now team. Like the Rams just won the Super Bowl. The Cardinals have Kyler Murray. Like it's not like a cakewalk in their division at all. Like they have struggled, don't get me wrong. But the Seahawks look resurgent and will be good next year. Like even if they don't win this year, they have a bunch of picks from trading Russell Wilson. So like if you're playing win now, you're competing with the Rams, who have a great team right now. The Cardinals are decent, and then the Seahawks are more future. So the Niners are putting themselves in the now bucket. And I'm always of the win now and in the future variety. So if you were saying that you don't think the Niners can really scare people with Jeff Wilson, Elijah Mitchell, Tyrion Davis-Price, who they drafted in the 3rd round with the 93rd pick, then at that point you should examine doing something more exciting. So Breece Hall fell to the 36th pick. The Giants had that. They traded to the Jets for the Giants' 38th pick, which is just down 2, and the 146th. So basically just a free pick to move down 2 slots, still get the same guy. And they got their guy, Breece Hall. But when I was talking to my friends, like, oh, they wouldn't do it because they still get their guy. But the guy the Giants got was not Breece Hall. So I was thinking, oh, that is tough. They don't want to give up on that. The Giants got Wan'Dale, so they could have gone farther down. So what I was thinking the Niners could have done is traded their 61st pick and their 93rd for 36, and then they could have gotten Breece Hall. So they get a young, dynamic. He already has a 100-yard receiving game to his name. They get a young, dynamic running back who doesn't have the mileage that McCaffrey does, doesn't have the contract, and they could have done it for just a second and a third. So it would have been a much easier swing. They could have done it for a second and third, kept the 4th and 5th, have a cheaper contract, and have a less injury-prone player. That being said, it's not like any prospect is a sure thing, but you do get a better deal when you get someone who's not a sure thing yet. If you want to get the next best running back, you trade for someone who's not playing as much. You trade for Javonte Williams now, who's hurt. I'm sure the Broncos would be willing to part with Javonte. Their team looks bad right now. They're trying to make the playoffs. Give them some assets who can compete now. You can get a Javonte Williams for the low. They're not going to give him up for free, but, there are prices attached to what the players are, and they are forgotten at times. Saquon Barkley was taken with the 2nd overall pick. Dave Gettleman was like, this is a gold jacket guy. He's a Hall of Fame talent. He is. Look how well he's doing this year. He had been struggling before. It's a new regime. They had no ties to Saquon. If the Niners were like Eli Mitchell and Davis-Price and Jeff Wilson is not the answer, which, they even signed Tevin Coleman a few weeks ago. Clearly, they're open to other options. They should have looked at getting Saquon Barkley. They could have gotten him for just like a 3rd-round pick at the beginning of this year. And he did have a serious injury, but overall, he wasn't like injury-prone in college. There were some like knocks on Christian McCaffrey for durability and stuff. Like he wasn't a top-flight talent out of college. So the fact that his body is getting dinged up like a Steph Curry who gets dinged up, that's not like someone who's always known to be an elite athlete. Now, Christian McCaffrey and Steph Curry have worked out a lot more. They've both grown a lot as athletes. Steph Curry wasn't much of an athlete, is now like an above average athlete. McCaffrey was around maybe an average to above average athlete and is now definitely a well above average athlete. Dude's absolutely jacked, can cut on the stop of a dime. But that wasn't like when he came out of Stanford, everyone wasn't like, oh, this is that next guy. Like he had really good numbers, but some people just put up numbers in college. People weren't talking about him like they're talking about Saquon. So if you compare what they traded for CMC versus what they could have gotten in Saquon, a dude who, like Nick Chubb, like Austin Eckler, is an absolute animal, like super big workout warrior, like puts McCaffrey to shame. So I think Saquon's the kind of guy you would trust even more. He's actually 25, he's a year younger than McCaffrey. You could have given up less, and he's currently performing better. He's performing at an MVP level. So if we're talking about what the Niners want to do to win now and in the future, you can argue that Brees is actually the better option. Would have been a little more expensive than Saquon and a little bit more of a risk, but it depends on what kind of risk. Is he going to compete? They actually say running back's one of the easiest positions to compete. If you can do it in college, you can do it in the pros if you're behind a good line and a good system. So with Shanahan, of course, Shanahan, who could turn all those random dudes, I know this is dad, but it's a similar situation, who could turn a Landis Gary into a 1,000-yard rusher in Denver. It's year after year, new person. With the Niners, he's done it too. J. Michael Hasty, Tevin Coleman, everyone who's going in there. Jared Hayne, for Christ's sake. Everyone who was going in there was looking good. I wish Jared Hayne had made it done better. But yeah, I just think that there were better ways to do the McCaffrey trade. If you're looking at your roster and like, oh, we need an elite talent at running back, there are cheaper pieces you could have had. The Browns would have been, they have to Ernest Johnson. They would have given up Kareem Hunt for a third or a fourth rounder. You get Kareem Hunt for a third or fourth rounder, and then you trade a second, third, or fourth, like a second or third for Jerry Jeudy, and like a third or a fourth for Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool did really well, had a 100-yard game a couple games ago or last week, but the week before that, he could have been gotten at an even lower price, probably a third or a fourth. So you give a third and a fourth, probably next year because the Niners don't really have. Oh, they had it this year, of course. They just traded him. So you give a third for Claypool, a fourth for Hunt, and then you kept your second and fifth. And Kareem Hunt and Claypool are like an explosive, terrifying duo. The Niners don't have a third receiver. All of a sudden, they have Claypool, who can be like a second tight end, kind of with Kittle help on running plays. Like, that's a big dude. And then Kareem Hunt is a nice physical runner. Like, it's not like there's a huge drop off when Chubb comes out. So I think something like that would have been crazy. Antonio Gibson as well, former receiver in college who's had a 1,200 yards from scrimmage season in Washington, is in the doghouse. You get someone like him for a fourth-round pick. So you could have gotten Antonio Gibson and Hunt if you want to double down on running back, or you could have gotten like a Gibson and a Claypool. And again, just talking about trading a second, third, fourth, and fifth, you could have gotten all three dudes. Or like could have gotten Robbie Anderson for the super low and the two running backs, because Gibson can play some slot receiver and gadget stuff as well. So there's a lot of stuff you can do there. I think Gibson would be the number one target. Or Jeudy, Garoppolo would love Jeudy. So it depends on how much. Like I would say, go for Gibson, Jeudy, and screw it, get Robbie Anderson as well, because if someone gets hurt, like you don't really need Robbie Anderson. They probably got like a fifth for Robbie Anderson. That's like nothing. Maybe don't get Robbie Anderson. You've got that guy. I take it back. Don't get the third. Keep the picks. I was talking about how trading CMC is bad because you're keeping picks, but you can still get two dudes for less. So I think Chase Claypool, we're talking about money. So you are going to have to pay him, but you could get Hunt or Gibson and not pay them. And if they all do well, you can pay them, and they still would do less than CMC. 4 for 64. If you're talking about wins over replacement, average over replacement, McCaffrey's 16 per year is way more than running back getting like 3 per year. Whereas you give Claypool a contract, and it would be in line with what other receivers get. So I do think there's a lot more value that could be had there. That being said, the way to look at the trade is, should we have done it or should we not have done it? As far as assets go, it's actually still possible the Niners shouldn't have done it. People are saying, are they the favorite? I still don't think they're the favorite. I know Garoppolo can win in big games, but like, do you think he's going to win 3 games in a row? Like, I think he can win a big game, but I'm not going to choose him like going against Brady and the Bucs and that good defense. Fournette was killer in the playoffs last year. They'll have Godwin, Evans, and potentially Julio Jones. Like, they don't really have a tight end, so that's not as scary. But Philly has a complete roster, and you say, oh, we got Christian McCaffrey. The Eagles always have all those dudes rotating in their front seven. They just added Jordan Davis. Like, a dude's an absolute monster of a man. They still have Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. Like, that's just a defensive unit you don't want to mess with. Darius Slay shut down Justin Jefferson. James Bradbury's been playing well. They got CJ Gardner-Johnson. Like, that's just a fierce unit. And then they got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Miles Sanders is decent. Dallas Goedert is incredible. He's a really good athlete. I didn't know he's like a wakeboarder, fly fisher, rock climber, all those things. He's just a big dude who moves his body well. Like a 6'5", 250. He's like a Mark Andrews light kind of guy. And then they've got the best offensive line in football. So as good as Trent Williams is, the Eagles' line's a little better. Hurts is a lot better. And then they have the full team. They've been doing it well already. So people are saying, yeah, the Niners could be that, but it also could not work. Like, Jimmy isn't quite that guy. I do like the idea. It's just, if it doesn't work in this next year, And then next year, some other teams get better. Like if Brady's still there, the Bucks get a tight end. Then all of a sudden, the Bucks are a better team than you guys. Rodgers, Christian Watson, and Dubes get a year older. And Aaron Rodgers is of course better than whatever quarterback the Niners trot out. So it's like it's kind of they're saying their window is now because they don't have a quarterback for next year unless it's Jimmy. But then they have to pay Jimmy, so then you can't really like it's kind of a weird situation they've put themselves in. They don't really have the capital, so they're pretty much banking on Trey Lance with this. And it's cool. Don't get me wrong. So what I was saying was, do it or not do it. You do it because if you look at it, only 2 teams go to the Super Bowl every year, and those teams are kind of seen as having a successful season. Everyone else is pretty much disappointed with their season. A team that goes from 5 wins to 11 is going to be happy, but at the end of the day, the fan base is still going to be mad that, well, now we don't have a good pick and we didn't go anywhere. So unless you like develop a franchise quarterback out of nowhere or like a cornerstone player, something that really changes, unless your team goes to the Super Bowl, it's seen as a failure. And the other team should really be focused on revenue. So actually something I just realized today is you should sign offensive players to big contracts. Keep those name guys. That's who sells jerseys and that's who gets people watching the TV, and just draft a ton of defensive players and sign veteran defensive players, people coming off injuries, and just have a mass of defensive player and more high quality offensive players. You need a high quality tight end. If you have a tight end who can block and a tight end who can catch, and you put in the blocking tight end, they know you're running. You put in the passing tight end, they know you're passing. When Andrews is in, if they're passing, he hasn't blocked a single time this year. He runs the route every time. But it can be in that same formation they can run. So he is able to hold up his end in the run game. So if you're designing a team, you want to have that one elite receiver, which is what the Eagles just did. I actually said maybe they shouldn't have signed A.J. Brown, gotten Treylon Burks, but they want to win now. You get the A.J. Brown. You have a good tight end like a Goddard, and then you have a quarterback who you can trust. So Hurts is a perfect example like that. He's on a rookie deal, so they can go out and pay for their playmakers. They can pay for C.J. Gardner Johnson. The Niners aren't going to be in that scenario next year unless they're fully in on Trey Lance. So it looks like this is going to put them in Trey Lance mode. And if your point is we want to make money, then Christian McCaffrey is making you money. And even if Trey Lance sucks, then they're kind of screwed anyways. They'd already traded their 3 first-round picks. So might as well go in with Lance, make that money. So because of that, I like it. But if you're saying you just want to make money, you also could have done that in cheaper ways, as I've detailed, trading for Saquon, trading for Breece Hall. There have to be other ways to do it. Najee went with the 22nd pick last year. He hasn't been great, but like you probably could have moved up and gotten a Najee and then paired Najee with Trey Lance. I guess they thought they did that with Trey Sermon, so that wouldn't have happened. That's not a viable case. But from that point of view, the Niners did succeed. They've set their rookie quarterback up for success, and they've set themselves in a win-now mode for this year. So the trade was successful, but it's like unless they decided to trade for Christian McCaffrey because he became available and they'd never thought about trading for running back before, but that's probably not the case. Kyle Shanahan's a wizard. They probably considered every alternative, and they probably should have realized this before, that Kittle is elite, their receivers are elite, their fullback is elite, and their quarterback is not. Whether it's Lance or Garoppolo, they should have done whatever is possible to help them. So they should have brought in a receiver or a running back already. There are people who can be traded for. There's Alexander Madison. There's Kareem Hunt, David Montgomery, or Khalil Herbert have both looked good, but also not been that good. Like they could have been traded for. So there's definitely things that could have been done. And while I do like the McCaffrey trade, everyone's like, oh my God, look what they did. People also knock the Titans for signing Derrick Henry because then they had to lose A.J. Brown. So the Niners have now traded for McCaffrey and have to pay him. So they've doubled down. So the Titans did the wrong thing by paying him, and the Niners traded for and paid him. So it just seems a little like, oh, McCaffrey's a cool guy. We all like Christian McCaffrey. We should get him. He's a hard worker. He'll fit in well. But like Taysom Hill would have fit in well too. That was the third guy I was trying to think of before. They could have traded for like a Taysom Hill, Antonio Gibson, and Jerry Jeudy or Claypool. And Taysom Hill blocking and playing with Kittle would love that role. And then if Garoppolo gets hurt, you've got quarterback backup. So that might have actually cost a little more. That might cost like a third and a fourth or something. But you could then get basically about the same price, Claypool, Hill, and Antonio Gibson, or CMC, I think it's obvious you got to take all three of those. So if you're going to give up a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth, I just think the Niners could have gotten more for it. So I love the trade for them. I just wish they'd asked me what to do first. And they could have just traded for Laviska Shenault, which is what I was trying to say and almost forgot to get to. Laviska Shenault is just like a Debo. You take a aging Cordero Patterson and turn him into a 1,200 yards from scrimmage kind of guy. Look what you can do with a Percy Harvin type with a Laviska Shenault. He's similar build to McCaffrey. He's like 6 feet, 220 pounds. He's built like a running back. Just play the man at running back. That's who they should have traded for. Forget Taysom Hill. Don't ever forget Taysom Hill. They should have traded for Taysom Hill and Laviska Shenault. That would have worked out wonders. They would. Juszczyk, Taysom, and Kittle would be the three broiest bro friends of all time. Seriously, they should have traded for Viska. And the Panthers should now use Viska at running back. Wins. Also, fun thing is, I was like, oh, the Panthers just came out on top. And I thought about the Giants traded Saquon and got mad for a second. I was like, no, don't trade Saquon. And I was like, wait a second. No, totally do that deal. So as someone who is on the other side and could have had my team give up their star player, even though the Giants are winning now, if we were offered that right now, you've got to do it. You could turn that into so much. A second, third, fourth, and fifth, you can just take a first-round pick you have, like 20th, add the second, third, and fourth, and get the first overall pick. So there's way more you can do with that many picks.